He looked a little pale, like he might be coming down with something. I put a little blanket on him. About 10 minutes later, I came back to check on him, and I could tell by the smell in the room that he had thrown up. The smell was pretty bad. He was just really not himself. I got him a little rag to wash his face off. I was pretty nervous at this point because he's had this headache and now he was vomiting. I thought it was a stomach flu.
Not long after, Catherine observes something startling.
I went to check on James, and he was holding his head and moaning. It was the most horrible sound I've ever heard come out of his mouth. Something was not right. I was pretty certain that I should get him to the emergency room right away.
When they arrive at the hospital, a new symptom suddenly strikes.
James began to talk gibberish.
James! That makes no sense. James!
He put words together that didn't make any kind of sense at all.
James!
Catherine alerts the staff.
Doctor!
And a doctor rushes in.
The doctor became concerned about his cognitive function.
So the medical team decides to give him a CAT scan of his brain.
I was in the room with James as they're preparing him for the CAT scan. All of a sudden, his legs drew back and his body arched. The guy ran out from behind the window and I said, he's having a seizure. And he said, yes, he is.
Doctors are able to complete the CAT scan, but the results reveal nothing significant. So doctors must rely on a more invasive test.
They decided that they wanted to do a spinal tap, but they couldn't move at all when they were doing a spinal tap. They had to give him sedatives, but it didn't work.
With James still convulsing uncontrollably, the team resorts to physical force.
I and 3 other nurses, we all had to hold him in place. He wore out. 4 grown men trying to hold him still.
For a staggering 45 minutes, the team tries to restrain the young boy.
You could tell how excruciating it was. It's horrifying.
At last, James passes out, and doctors are able to extract a sample of his spinal fluid, which they send to the laboratory for testing. Then, 3 days after his seizure, doctors deliver some unexpected news.
They told me that he could go home, and I said, I really don't think he's ready to go home because we still had no diagnosis.
In spite of her concerns, Catherine takes James home, but it's clear that all is not well.
All of a sudden, he starts to throw up. His symptoms seem to have come right back. I gave him some ibuprofen, but nothing could help him. I was very worried.
Then the phone rings.
It was a lady from the Florida Department of Health letting me know that James's spinal fluid was sent to her lab and that his test results had come back.
And the diagnosis is horrific.
She told me most people that are afflicted with this illness die. He had Eastern equine encephalitis. And most people that are afflicted with this illness die.
Inside James's body, the triple E virus makes its way through the bloodstream and into the brain. There, the virus invades individual brain cells, replicating inside them and destroying them in the process. This causes the brain to swell, leading to James's headaches, altered mental state, and seizures.
She said, there's no treatment for Eastern equine encephalitis. All you can do is just treat the symptoms and hope that the person pulls through. The Florida Department of Health, they actually want to follow James's case to use his data to help them with future cases.
It made me feel a lot better knowing the CDC was keeping track of what was going on with him. keeping track of how he was doing, helping with getting some of the tests scheduled, track his brain activity and such. It wasn't just a diagnosis that come across somebody's desk. They were actually following it and keeping up on him.
Then, one morning in June, Catherine notices a change.
He comes to me and he says, "Can I go outside and shoot my bow and arrow?" And I knew that he's taking a turn for the better.
It's such a huge weight lifted off your shoulders just to see him that much better.
After 3 more months of recovery, James returns to school. And today, the young James Hatfield is back in the swing of things.
I feel good now because I'm not sick anymore. There's no fevers, headaches, or nausea that are caused by the Tripoli. I never want to see another hospital again.